Hello, everybody. My name is Trent Clark, CEO of Leadershipity, serial entrepreneur, longtime coach of professional baseball coaching in 3 World Series, and welcome to the Winners Find a Way show. I am with my good friend, LinkedIn Larry. Larry Kaufman, how are you, buddy?
I am wonderful, Trent. Thanks for having me. Great to see you again.
Yeah, it's great to see you, man. This is exciting to have you. You and I go back about 10 years back in Chicago. And man, like you were the LinkedIn guy before there were LinkedIn guys, right? Or LinkedIn people, right? Like you were leading people to like, hey, this is how you actually use your your profile to actually gain access into this world. And there was probably what, 1 million users out there? I mean, there was probably how many now comparatively, right?
Almost 800 million, and I was out there when there were about a million.
Yeah. That's just crazy. That's crazy. So, for everybody, welcome to the show. I'm super excited. On the Winners Find a Way show, we talk about to the 1% about the tough things, the things that we overcome in this life. And if you're sitting there out there and you're looking to become elite, you're a business owner, an athlete, running an organization, or just simply looking to get better, like this is the show for you. We are thrilled to have you here. And Larry Kaufman will not disappoint at all. Let's meet Larry. First of all, Larry, where can they find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn.
That's right.
Right? So look up Larry Kaufman in Chicago on LinkedIn. You can also find me on Amazon. So look me up under my name or under the NCG Factor, and also kaufman-larry.com for my website.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, so let's meet Larry. Um, Larry, I love your story. You got a great story. You wrote the NCG Factor. You're a Loyola guy. You're a Chicago kid, born and raised, and then went to Loyola, great school,
Yeah.
Jesuit school, which I love. And then you've been in the corporate world and bridging that corporate to private for a lot of years. Is that fair?
Yeah, I've been on my own. I had a taste of that. Have had the corporate. I've been through 4 M&As. I've seen a lot, done a lot, and always shifted industries because I wanted to challenge myself and not just be that 30-year person, same company, same industry, doing the same thing day in, day out.
Right. So I love that. And then you're a McDonald's guy, which makes sense being in Chicago, but you started out like on the register. Is that right?
Well, I've had many part-time jobs. I've been working since I was 13, and before that, if you call babysitting and shoveling snow, right? I
That's
did
a
all. I love
job.
money. Love money. But yeah, I did the McDonald's stint, and I was fired from the register because I couldn't balance. I was demoted, or you could say promoted to fry guy, fillet guy, grill
Nice.
guy. That didn't work out too well either.
Yeah. And then now, like the McDonald's is pretty important to you, right? Like, this is a huge part of your life because you met your spouse in McDonald's. Talk about that.
I met my wife probably going on 34 years ago through a McDonald's drive-through. She was, wearing that sexy headset. It was the size of your head back then. The
Yeah, like this.
polyester uniform. Oh, it's
Yeah.
great. It was great. No, really, really caught my eye. And I was going through the drive-through. It took repeated trips to make the real connection.
Yes. Well, listen, nothing says hotness like polyester and a big headset, right?
No, it that did it for me.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
took me in.
Clearly, you could see some heart to there. Now, what's one thing most people don't know about you, Larry?
Well, so besides actually meeting my wife through the McDonald's drive-through, we eloped a little over a year after that. We just June 6th just hit 33 years. We got married in Vegas. We eloped and got married at the Chapel of Love
Yes, I
off the
love it.
strip. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. The Chapel of Love. Like, who wouldn't be hanging at the Chapel of Love, right? So good. So tell me a little bit about the NCG Factor. This is one of you, how many books have you written? Is this your book?
One and only.
One and
Right
only.
now,
Yep,
we're
one and
sticking
only.
with
Okay.
one, but
Yep.
it's a good one.
I know you have another one in the works. So okay, so you have one only right now, and let's talk a little bit about that. The NCG Factor. First of all, what does the NCG stand for?
So N is networking, C connecting, G giving. It's a formula for building life-changing relationships from college to retirement. So just that's in a nutshell, very simple. It's really all about building relationships using the art of connecting and giving. And it really starts from college because you talk about Loyola. I thought back to my days at Loyola being in a fraternity. You wouldn't think of Loyola as a party school, but it was back in the 80s because that's how old I am. And it was a different world back then. And I wouldn't have thought about forging relationships and volunteering for a charity and helping kids that are having some challenges in certain topics, which I could not have been a tutor for, but just in theory, it would have been nice if I could have helped somebody with something. And networking with my professors, right? And we've got LinkedIn today. I could connect with my professors and I could start to forge relationships, things I wouldn't have thought about back then. But then you take it and fast forward at all stages of our career, all the way into retirement, we do need to be connecting and building relationships and be giver and to be givers as well.
Yes. Yes. And as a business owner, I mean, we battle this all the time. I mean, it is I think the networking part is almost like ingrained in the business owner, right? Where everyone's always hunting for new clients, the networking part, but the actual connecting and giving back and making space and room for that, I see a lot of people challenged with that. What do you see, Larry?
I would say you're right. I think a lot of people are just going right for the jugular, right? They just want the business, they want to get right to the decision maker. And today is a different world, right? So we have to be a little more sensitive, kind of like you could say post COVID, we're still sort of in the thick of it to a degree. And you really got to take the time to build relationships and get to know people. And the better you get to know people, the more you could forge a relationship and frankly do some things for them that they wouldn't have thought that you could do.
Yeah.
And so I've done a lot of things for people because I want to, but that's converted into business. And I'm not in a sales capacity, I'm a leadership role, but that is turned into business without me asking for it.
Mm, mm. One of the words that I love that you use is the NCG factor, and really like a carrier word, right? Is legacy. Let's talk a little bit about that because I think people go to work every day, and I think people dream about leaving a legacy. I think they think it's important. I think everyone wants to know what people are going to say at their funeral, right? And be remembered well, right? But you and I both know that that starts with what you do every day. And this is one of those things like you can't push it off to, hey, one of these days I'm going to get to really leaving this legacy. It's going to be maybe not this year, maybe not the next 2 or 3 years, but like 5 years, I'm going to be comfortable where I can go out and start giving back. And you'd argue against that. Is that fair?
I would, I don't think we should wait. And you're right about, you don't want to wait till you're gone to build that legacy. You've got the opportunity to do it now. And I've been doing that for years, is trying to build that living legacy with intent, thinking about the other person and making the right connections, introductions, getting to know people, and where they need help. If they're trying to, get a loved one to Mayo Clinic, and I can open that door. Or recently, someone was challenged with their child trying to get into medical school, and some connections and things I did was helpful to get them there. You wouldn't think that, right? So it's about being indispensable to other people, that they think of you beyond what you do in your business, what your company sells and markets, what you do in your leadership role. Stop thinking about yourself and think about the other person, and that will lend itself to your legacy.
Yeah. And I think, as I read that, just that part of that where we're talking about not just your clients, but your team, your advisors, those people that are supporting the system and building sustainability. One of those big iddies, right? As organizations, everyone's role is based on sustainability. We all are much more comfortable when we know, hey, there's going to be a job tomorrow. But part of that is leaving that legacy inside with those individuals internally, and I think sometimes we're always looking at that externally. Do you see that the same?
Yeah, I totally agree. So, I lead a decent sized team, but, during the pandemic and ongoing, they know. And I ask, how can I be helpful to you? How about those in your world, in your family? What can I do to be helpful? And so it's turning to your teams, is getting to talk to the people around you that work for you, with you, and around you, finding out how they've been impacted by the pandemic, what's happening in their world. And the more that you talk to your internal teams and peers, there's things that you could do for them that would be really helpful. And you're right, then externally, definitely. But you're right, internally, just right around you to find out how people are doing, what's happening in their world. And I love doing that. And frankly, some of what I've done is some people have been through some terrible hardships related to and not related to COVID. And it's me just picking up the phone and calling them. And I know you're going through a tough time. And Trent, I just wanted to, have a chat with you and see how you're doing, and
Yes.
and what could I do for you and your family in this time of need. And sometimes just that phone call and being empathetic and true and real is really powerful. It doesn't mean that you're making a connection. It's just having a conversation.
Well, and letting somebody be heard, right? I think that's one of the biggest challenges when things are down. We don't feel heard, right? Like, and I do this when I speak. I ask, hey, who in the room has had their boss in the last 5 years? Ask them, how can I be of help to you? How could I be serving you better? Anything in that category, genre. And what do you think the hand total is about percentage wise in the room?
1% less.
It's a little better than that. I would say between 10 and 20%. But we're
That's pretty
talking
good.
about 1 in 5 leaders. 1 in 5 leaders, their direct boss, the direct play. I tell people all the time, people don't leave companies, they leave their boss. And if you're a boss and you're leading out there at any level, at any position you're in, and I don't care if it's the eighth grade volleyball team, like that's awesome. Like if you're the captain, like, hey, how am I helping others get better and asking and engaging in those conversations? And like you said, Larry, really listening to what that answer is, I think is so huge.
It really is.
Tell us a little bit about. Okay, let's jump into this question. I'm excited about the book. We can see the NCG Factor book right there on the shelf in the back end. If you have not got that, you need to pick it up. It's a good book. You're definitely going to want a little piece of that. And Larry, because you listen as a LinkedIn profile member, it's a competitive environment, right? This is what did you just tell me? 80 million?
800 million members today
800.
globally.
800 million. Like what an like how do you absolutely separate yourself in this market? I mean, first of all, talk to Larry, read the book. That's going to help you as a leader for sure. And then the show is Winners Find a Way. And the reason for that, Larry, is because I love the quote from the 4 disciplines of execution that says winners, when shown data that they are losing, find a way to win. And in my lifetime, that has been probably the mantra of athletics. Like you lose all the time. And so you get accustomed to like, hey, I don't like failing. This isn't good for me. We have very notable KPIs, right? There's a big scoreboard in bright lights that says, listen, they have 8 runs and you have 1. It's very clear and evident that you're losing. Some of these KPIs are not always evident that we're losing, but in business we have tons of them, right? We have tons of them of attrition, employees leaving our companies. We have clients that are leaving our business and ordering somewhere else and buying somewhere else. There's all sorts of these KPIs. In your life, I know you've been up against some challenges in your life. Let's talk about one of those times when you were down, felt like the losses are mounting, struggling, and you got to figure out a way to get through this. Can you take me back to a time then?
I can take you back probably 2006 or so. I went into business. I left corporate America to go into business with a gentleman I had met in a business where I was running national sales. My wife was having a baby, and my daughter was going to be born prematurely at 26 weeks, 2 pounds, and actually ended up in the NICU for over 3 months. So
Wow.
really, really challenging time. She wasn't supposed to survive the first night. And, it was a time where I was very stressed. And so this gentleman I was partnering with in my business where I was running national sales said, "Why don't you come into business with me?" Now, I'd not done a lot of research, but he had written like 10 books on Amazon. He had been on Oprah's AM Chicago in the day. So you got to take back some of your leaders who are not the new leaders. The leaders of the past may recognize that name or
Sure.
show. But, I thought this was someone I've worked with. He had been very philanthropic, knew a lot of high powered people, names you would know and your audience would know. And I was at a tough point in my life. I said, maybe this is great. I'll leave my corporate job, making, a lot of money, great benefits, to lose it all, no salary, complete risk. My wife was too stressed out to, combat my decision. I just felt I'd have more flexibility to help us through this tough time. And he painted a really nice picture. I didn't know better. I'd never been on my own. I was a corporate guy, and I went into business with him. And I would say it was the roughest year and a half MBA, real life, I could have ever gotten. I I wouldn't say this to my wife out loud, but I'm glad I went through it. It
Mm.
it, it changed me. I learned a lot. It was tough, emotionally, financially. It brought me rock bottom, but I learned so much from that experience. But I had to lift myself up because I had a wife. We just had a premature baby. We had a child besides that, my son, who was about 4, and my wife wasn't working. So it was me that had to dig myself out of this relationship that was going nowhere fast and find a real job outside of that, which I did, a very high paying leadership job. But it was very difficult to keep the current relationship with my partner, who was not a good human being, who had been dishonest. And I think many leaders in the audience can relate to that. You go into business with a partner, you have to ever do it again. Well, by the way, my wife said if I ever do it again, I can. I'll be doing it as a single man. So that marriage will be going away of 33 years. So I think I'm going to hang on to the marriage, but what a learning, that I had throughout that year and a half. It was
Yeah.
it was terrible and good all at the same time.
Yeah, and that partner ultimately ended up in prison.
So about 4 years after we parted ways, nothing that I hadn't talked to him for 4 years. He got involved in another business. He took millions of dollars from investors across the country, and basically, he was indicted, went to prison. He was plastered in the newspapers, television. Unbelievable what happened. He went to prison and he died.
Mm.
And just tragic.
Yeah.
But basically for me, it was quite an experience that's helped me throughout my career. And it's where I can give advice to people that I've been there, I've done it. I
Yeah.
took the risk, no salary, nothing, no benefits, and took that risk and gamble and survived it. But it paid. I paid a price for that.
So let's talk about that. Your daughter today is doing well.
So here's the interesting thing. So my daughter was a preemie. Preemies normalize after about 2 years, God willing. She had complications. It was up and down for the 3+ months. Very scary. Now my wife is 4'11", so we thought things aren't looking good for the height of my daughter. She has passed up my wife. Anyone that passes up my wife, that's a feat in itself. But my daughter is almost 5'2", healthy as can be, brilliant, smart, artistic, wonderful, wonderful woman.
And at university today.
She's going to college in the fall. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome. That's awesome. That's a beautiful thing. And you look back at that time. Let's talk about, going through that time. Um, you can the thing about the emotions of going through hard times is you can take yourself back there in a minute. So let's not relive it, but let's revisit it. All right.
sure.
Um, when you think about that time, and if you knew somebody that was going through that right now, Larry, what would you tell them is probably the most important thing to consider having time of reflection that you've had now to look back on that and go through some other challenges in your life? What do you think is the most important thing when you're going through hard times? I think a lot of people are right now. I mean, given the current state of things.
Well, I think you have to find someone that you can confide in and open up to, right? So I think if it's a business coach, it happened to be my wife, right? And I went to one of my clients that was running a $500 million organization of a multi-billion-dollar public company, who was one of my clients. I confided in him. And when I told him what was going on, I said, Larry, I never trusted that person. I trusted you.
Mm,
And it was actually this gentleman that actually employed me in a leadership role. Probably within 2 weeks, I had a job.
mm,
And and so had I not confided in him, had the deep conversation with my wife. So find someone or some people that you can confide in. Is painful, embarrassing as it may be, confide in someone, because don't try to go at it alone. That's what I would tell someone going through that today.
yeah, love that. What do you think when you look back? I mean, did you know, like, hey, as a kid, this is what I want to do. I want to be selling things. I want to be, developing, helping people develop their profiles and develop their positioning for betterment for themselves. What did you know this as a kid? Was there a moment that set you off on a path?
Look, I was supposed to be a doctor. That's what I thought was the path. I'd been a very bad doctor. So, I helped out a lot of people who are sick by not being that doctor. But I will say my father was more of that inspiration to, start out and go into sales, because I was more of a people person.
Hmm.
And so I think he set me on that path to sell. I liked seeing what he was doing in sales and winning trips. That got me down that path. And then that led me down the leadership path, because I liked the people that I worked for. And then I aspired to be that leader. And so I worked hard to stand out and acquire those skills and have mentors and coaches to get me down the leadership path. As far as being that connector giver, that probably wasn't until where I probably went more into the public accounting world many years ago, and that's where I started to see how, I know it sounds crazy, but accountants, at accounting firms, these CPAs really were forging these great relationships with their clients. Not saying all, but there were some standouts which really impressed me, and I saw that they weren't just about the business, they were about the people and the relationship. And but I actually met an attorney, an intellectual property attorney, actually at that company where that gentleman kind of bailed me out from that terrible partnership. I met this partner from a law firm, and I was told that he's just a great person to meet. And I wasn't meeting attorneys in my job there. That wasn't a focus.
Right.
But this woman in my network said, "You've got to know this guy, Brian. He's an IP attorney." So I met with him, and actually, what struck me at the end of our meeting, he said, "Larry, it's great to meet you. I'm going to introduce you to two people you don't know." I thought that was really, unique and interesting. I said, "Why would you do it?" He said, "It's just been my best practice, bringing two people in your world that you don't know, that you should know." I didn't become that connector overnight, but it changed the way that I thought about everyone I met with. It
Mm,
made me think a little bit deeper about who they are and who they should know.
mm. Yeah, I love that. And immediately, if someone says that to me, by the way, and people have said that to me, like, "Hey, I really want to introduce you." I I I feel like, wow, that's really great. I want to reciprocate that for you. I have a large network of all stars around me, and I'm fortunate and blessed that way, right? But I want those people to know somebody too. Like, and immediately my head started changing that tone because a few people did that for me. And I tell you, if that's one thing in business, when you talk about the connecting part, right? That would be. really influential because I think, we have this LinkedIn, and that's good, but it feels like it's on the top surface. We got to get in and build that relationship now. Now we've got the introduction. Let's get the relationship. Like, let me talk to you, Larry, about someone that I know that you don't know that I think would have really value in your life for whatever reason. It may not be business. It may be your next pickleball partner. I don't know, right? But like, this is somebody you're just going to want to know. And I think you're like-minded and you guys have the similar mindset, and it's just going to be somebody I think that's going to have value in your life. And some of those introductions for me have been the best things that have ever happened to me.
I'll tell you, when you do them the way I do them, where I've done business where I've helped someone become a CEO of $100 million company that became 200 million, and then he went through a divorce, and then I met someone who was widowed, and I introduced the two to network, but I told them each, I think there's something special here. You guys should know each other. And those two had fallen in love from
Mm,
that connection. I got another couple married. So I do a lot of personal connecting as well, Trent.
yeah.
So if your listeners are listening, please don't call me. I'm overloaded, but I love connecting people to people personally, professionally. I do it all. I'm full service.
Yeah, there you go. Like, you're the new Hitch, man. You
I,
know, Will Smith has nothing on you.
oh,
You
yeah.
know,
No, not at all.
I love it. All right, so if you had to look back on, really what separated you, Larry. I mean, you've been this guy who's been a trusted advisor for many. You're what I call a card, right? That high level coachability, adaptability to whatever's happening, always taking responsibility for your action. And then, of course, your network finds you very dependable. That dependability is so important. Um, if you had to think, like, what was the one thing that separates you in that 1%, Larry? What do you think your superpower is?
My superpower is I'm always thinking about the other person. And I love to ask and listen. I could tell you there's so many meetings I've had with people where they go, Larry, oh my God, this meeting's been all about me. And I think when you lead with yourself, you leave with yourself.
Hmm.
And I'm never leading with myself.
I love that. That's a good saying. When you lead with yourself, you leave with yourself.
That's right.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great one. Thank you. I'm gonna use that, by the way, this week on the show. That's awesome.
Please do.
Yeah, I'm gonna use that one. A Larry Kaufman original, right?
It is. It's mine.
That's an LK. I love it. All right. Let's talk about you've overcome a lot of challenges. I mean, business, corporation, M&A, I mean, acquisitions and the change and hey, adapt again, Larry. Hey, here we go again. And you're like, yeah, let's do it. Um, and a child, right? A child that you got 3 months. I mean, 90 days in a NICU is an eternity. And I don't know. I'm not speaking from experience. I've just been there, seen it close up. And it's not been personal. And when days become weeks, it's crazy. And talk to me about, what do you think the biggest challenge you've ever overcome?
Well, I think the biggest challenge I've ever overcome is, surviving that business partnership where it seemed like life was over financially, horrible times, right?
Mm,
Emotionally, draining on my relationship. I thought my marriage was going to be over. Still having a child who was not through that whole phase of, being that premature baby. She came home at 5 pounds.
yeah.
Very, very challenging times financially, emotionally, and still having to find a job. I think it was that where I'm at ground zero. It's over, and mentally I had to make sure that I can overcome this. That it's up to me, and no. I mean, my wife and other people. I was talking to other people, but it was me pushing myself, right? If you go to work out, like I work out 5 days a week, I'm getting up at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. It's me pushing myself, right? No one's telling me you need to work out. It's I push myself. I work hard to do my job every day and help other people and lead my team. But it was going through that time in my life. I just had to say that was the toughest time ever in my lifetime. And it was either I was going to give up and throw in the towel, where many that have been through a challenging experience like that in business with a partner or just in business, that you just want to say it's over. You could do that, or you dust yourself off and go, you know what? I'm meant for bigger and better. Thank God I did. And I thank my wife. I thank this CEO that helped me immensely
Hmm.
and others along the way. But yeah, that was the time, Trent.
Yeah. So I mean, let's take that into someone's situation right now, because this is one of those challenging things when you're a leader of an organization. There's so many moving parts, and it's hard. It's hard to go home and even talk about the 50,000 decisions that were made today at that office, right? I mean, it's crazy. And it's hard to get empathy from a significant other who's at home dealing with their own challenges, right? The financials, the roof over our head, keeping it clean, motherhood, fatherhood, whatever the case it is. We all got our stuff, right? If you know someone who's going through that, and the relationship is now up against it, what do you tell them? What do you tell them in that situation? What would be your piece of advice? I mean, first of all, don't go it alone. You confided in that, and thankfully, and I think all of us who've been in owned companies, right, have had the ultimatum question, like, "Hey, do you love the business so much, or do you want to still be married?" Right? Wait, hold
Right.
on, right? Um, so what would you tell someone in right in the middle of the heat?
Well, I think you have to dig deep and figure out, where do you want to be? So I had to envision where I wanted to be, right? So, I tell my kids, I tell I coach and mentor a lot of people. If you envision you're not going to get that sale, if you envision you're not going to get the 10 million in funding, you're not,
Right.
right? So I envisioned I was going to get that leadership job. I wanted to move on from this. I was going to get myself out of it. I didn't envision failure. I think too many people just say, "Hey, I failed here. It's not going to work. I'm done." I didn't do that. So I had help and talked to people, but I also envisioned being successful. I envisioned getting that next job, and I did. I got a $25,000 sign-on bonus. I
Yeah.
I got a beautiful job with guaranteed bonuses, and so I got out of that, but I envisioned it. And you hear like Jim Carrey talk about his career, and he wrote himself a check. Well, this was just me for at that time in my life where I was down. That's what I envisioned, and it came true. But I always, when I always have difficult times in business or in my life, I try to stay positive and think about the positive outcome.
I think that's great. I mean, I love Henry Ford's quote, right? Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So I love that, because that just starts right where your vision is. What are you thinking about? Like, well, I think I can't do it. I don't think I can get the job. Well, guess what? Like, I don't like your chances. Like, and I think that positive vision is so important. I want to touch on something else that you said that's very important about your day. People are always talking about, hey, how do I do my day right? How do I get going? You and I are fitness guys. We believe in taking care of ourselves. We're responsible for a lot of people, and being mentally, physically, and morally focused and conditioned is very important to both you and I. Agreed, Larry?
Yeah, and you're a guy who's been a strength and conditioning coach to Major League Baseball, so
Yeah.
you're even step above me a little bit, just a little bit.
So when you think about, I mean, people go, "Holy crap! You get up at 3:30 in the morning and go work out." Like, that's crazy. Now, tell people how you do that. Do you stay up till midnight?
I will tell you, I'm a 5 hour, 4 to 5 hour night guy, which is terrible. I know any doctor listening is going, okay, this guy better make sure he has good life insurance. However, But some people are just built that way. I just, I get enough sleep. I'm comfortable with it. But I have to tell you, getting up and working out in the quiet, everyone's sleeping, no one's bothering me. That is my solitude. I feel good mentally. It sets my day in the right direction.
Mm, so good. So good. So important. All right. Um, Next question. You've had a lot of advisors around you that have helped you along the way. What's the best piece of advice you got along the way from you've had a ton of corporate training. I mean, you've done a ton, let alone that you do a ton, but you on your way up, what was some of the best coaching and advising that you were given?
Someone told me, and I think my wife reinforces it, but I also have heard this from several mentors that, you're confronted with a situation, a problem, an issue, and you're quick to respond. Like you automatically want to respond and react. Take a moment, let it settle in, think about it, and then respond and react.
Mm,
Because we can quickly respond the wrong way. And look, I'm still guilty of this today. I have to go back in my mind and go, wait a minute, hold up. I want to
what
send
you
that
got?
email. Wait, or and I take a moment, and then I would say with email, we're very quick to respond via email. And you know what? There's this thing called the phone, and email is not always your friend. And picking up the phone, saying, Trent, got your message. Let's talk it out because I think you can misconstrue an email.
For sure.
Let's just talk to each other. Man, what a difference, to have that true dialogue.
Mm.
It's amazing.
Well, I like to say that I read this a long time ago where leaders are not measured by their answers, they're measured by the questions they ask. And and man, I think a lot of people were like, "Oh, I'm a leader now. Larry's made me a leader. He trusts me. He's going to want me to come up with all the answers." Well, you know what? Maybe at some point. But what if we really want all the answers? We want the right answers. We don't want any answers. And if we want the right answers, we have to ask the right questions. And people that speak too quickly, I feel like they don't ask the right questions, right? Because they don't take that time to get the data. We don't give good feedback. We don't make good decisions on 30 or 40% of the data, right? So by asking those right questions, we move way further down the road and can make a lot better. Do you agree with that?
I totally agree. You're right. That's why when I talk with people, it's, you want to ask great questions and listen. And that's powerful.
Yeah, I that is something I think you have developed an art of asking that question and really listening. And when I think about Jack Daly and some of the best salespeople I know in the world, man, they're so good at that. They're so good at listening. And I don't know if you know Carrie Chesick from Restaurant.com there in Chicago.
Gary was a client of mine in public accounting days.
Yeah, so Carrie's a good friend and mentor of mine, and Carrie is so Carrie doesn't fall in love with products. He doesn't fall in love with services. He falls in love with listening to clients about what they want, and then he gives it to them. Isn't that weird? Like,
Yeah,
like
very.
like, hey, it's amazing how many clients he has, right? He just keeps getting more and more because he's asked them what he wants. He's asked the right questions, and so he has those answers. And so, and even if he gets those questions and finds out he may not have the service yet. He may say, "Oh, I got to develop this service because this is what they want, and we're not doing it the right way right now. We got to adapt our program and our service." And so, he is not shy to do that, and it's really admirable because he's a listener, right?
Very good listener.
Yeah, so let's talk about when you're in the trenches, Larry. Is there a go-to for you? Do you have something? I mean, you've given me some great stuff here, but is there a go-to quote that man just like sets you back and says like, "Hey, this levels the foundation. This is what's important. Like I got to get back to where it is, no matter what the scoreboard says, no matter how I'm feeling emotionally. I got to think about this, and it can level me immediately."
Well, I can go back to the lead with yourself or you leave with yourself.
Yeah.
Something I used when I was in sales, and I've shared this with my sales folks. Do something every day to close business. And I always liked that one. That was someone that gave that to me in the '90s, and it made me think that if you don't have a day where you're really happy, right, where you didn't achieve what you wanted to achieve, it's more about what I got out of that message. If you didn't get what you wanted out of your day, go do something to make it a day where you're pleased with the outcome. Don't just settle for the way it ended. And so I may have left a few voicemails, sent, you
Yeah.
know, some messages. I did something extra above and beyond. It may have been after hours, may have been on a Sunday as well. I did a little bit more because I wasn't happy with the way things ended that particular day.
Yeah. That's really good, right? So quick examples, a quick email, a follow up to a client that may have lost track of. Give us some other examples, real quick.
Well, it just may be it's really just reaching out and making a phone call to
Hmm.
someone, and leaving a message that is about you could be about your product or service, but something a little more about that person, doing your research and taking the extra steps to leave something where it's compelling that it's going to result in a response, a next step. And so I think I just never wanted to be salesy, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to be more relationship driven even before I wrote the book.
Mm, mm. Good. I was thinking about our quote. As we talked about, as you go through these days of leading up to you and I getting a chance to talk. I knew it was on our schedule here for a couple of weeks, and really the legacy word of NCG really stuck out for me, right? And I actually read something about Trent Dilfer, who's, by the way, probably the most unlikely Super Bowl quarterback of all time, right? Because this guy is not, like, statistically speaking, the best quarterback that's ever played the game. But he said the ultimate gift the great quarterbacks have, and I'm just going to put leaders have, is more than their talent, is their ability to make everybody better. That's the job of the great quarterback or the great leader, is you make the building better, you make the linemen better, you make the receivers better, you make marketing better, you make fulfillment better, you make the coaches better, your executives around you, you make your administrators are better. I mean, you make equipment people better. I mean, all these things, the whole organization's better because of your greatness and how you approach your job, the mindset of everybody involved. And I thought, man, when I thought about that and I thought about that complete networking, connecting, and giving of a leader and an NCG and how you're going to leave that legacy, I thought that was a good quote from Trent Dilfer.
I like that a lot. I like that a lot.
Tell me, to end, let's talk about people out there need to win. They need to win today. What do you think, in your experience, you've written a great book on about it. Everybody should pick that up. Hey, you want to learn how to win? Pick up the NCG Factor, right? Um, what would be your single input of advice for people? Maybe we haven't covered it, maybe we have, but like the single point of like, hey, I got to get on the winning way. What would be your best point to start?
I have to go back to what I said before, Trent, because I just think everyone wants to go to the negative. I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of people like to go to the negative, and I like to go to the positive, right? So it's just picture, imagine yourself winning, right? You've dealt with Major League Baseball, so you have to imagine you're gonna be a top rated pitcher, right? You're gonna be the best batter in the world. And if you think, hey, I'm gonna be mediocre or average, I'm doing my best. I think I'll do okay. Not good enough. I want to win. Doesn't mean you're always going to get there, but I want you to start out thinking that way. And so my children, the people around me, my team, we have to think like we're going to win. We have to think and act like winners. And so if we just miss the mark a little bit, at least we tried to achieve the highest level of where we wanted to be for our business and for our life.
Yeah, I love that. You're so right that vision work is so important to athletes. It's unreal. And by the way, we've done this since we were 8 years old, running around the backyard in the driveways, going, "Last second shot, Game 7 of the NBA Finals. Steph Curry, 3, 2, 1. Oh, we win!" And we run around the yard and we make believe of this visionary moment of greatness, and we see ourselves in that winning light. And then it's like somebody pulls it out of you, and it's probably why I got dubbed the dream maker, right? As a coach, because going to 3 World Series, my first trip was 25 years old, and it was only, 13 years before that. I was running around my yard hitting wiffle balls over the fence, going, Game 7 of the World Series, and you realize everyone on the field is actually living the dream. Because this is what we were all dreaming about as kids,
Right.
running around our backyards. And so, when you're talking about what are you dreaming about? What Larry's telling me, you just get that vision very clear in your mind on how you're going to win that dream. How are you going to win it over? It's so important. And then of course go to work on that networking, the connecting, the giving. I love that. The people around you, how important that is. Both the good and the lessons of the people that aren't, right? There's a lot of value in those hard lessons. They're hard lessons, but they're some of the best things we ever got. And you talked about your gratefulness and thankfulness for it. Um, the confide in a coach or a therapist, having someone that you can talk with, maybe a client, maybe a vendor, someone close to you, maybe a peer, maybe a fellow leader across it maybe even be a competitive leader that you just know in that market. But don't go it alone. And then of course, I love the idea of stand out, right? You talked about standing out and going the extra mile and doing a little bit more each day, to do something every day to close business. And then, of course, here, I want to introduce you to two people you don't know. I thought that was really powerful. That was a great lesson along the way. And then other people first. If you lead with yourself, you will leave with yourself. That is Larry Kaufman right there. Larry, thank you so much for joining us. I am so thankful that you could be with us on the Winners Find a Way show. And you can always check us out 12:30 Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific every Friday live, and you can go and get the podcast on all the major podcasting networks. Larry, thank you so much for the time today. Appreciate it, and hopefully we'll see you again. And for everybody else, pick up the NCG Factor. Larry, thanks again.
Thank you, Trent, and your audience too. Thank you. Great to see you.